Okay, so we're heading into some major social Darwinism. Now, you've had the luxury to experience freedom from the left wing. But you're like, no, there's not freedom. They didn't give us freedom. They made us stay home and stay safe and wear a mask. They allowed people to express themselves that we didn't agree with. They made food more expensive. You know, Biden loosened the reins on, the student loans and And they made gas more expensive. Oh my gosh, that's an attack on my freedoms. That's an attack on my freedoms. Oh, you don't know what you're coming into. Biden was the good daddy. Biden was the easy daddy. Biden was the pushover parent. No, now we're going to be heading into the parent that's going to lay down the law. The big boss. You know, when you're like working for a company and you have a satellite office and the big boss doesn't come out normally unless something absolutely has to, happen. And so people do whatever they do. And then when the boss comes, people start, get on the phones and looking busy and breaking up their chat, their chat stuff. And so, yeah. And it's not even like so much like Trump. Trump is just a figurehead. He's a representation. The irony is that, yeah, he has 34 counts of felonies against him, but he's still going to get into office. The irony is the system is going to draw out the people who act like him, which is fine, whatever. The system drew out people who supported Biden and all of their different, alternative lifestyles and whatever. And people say, oh, you can't say alternative lifestyle. That's mean. Not necessarily, but what I'm saying is that the system drew out the people they wanted to draw out. And they radicalized them to such a level. And with all these different campaigns, with the air, food, and water, with medical, holistic, politics, religion, and science, racial tensions, everybody out there is resisting somebody. Everybody out there is radicalized against something. And so if you decide to be out there, injecting yourself into areas that you don't even know who people are, what they're about, holy shit. Holy shit. That's why I stayed home the last 4 years, because I knew what world I was in. It was bad. It was bad. It was fucking bad. It was aggressive. And I had to get my mind and my body and my spirit, everything straight, and release the demons and expand my brain. And being alone does that. It allows you to release the demons, get your backyard cleaned up for the most part, as much as you can, fly the straight and narrow, release the demons, like I said, get everything prepared so that way you can downsize and do what you got to do in case things really go awry. And you hunker down. That's what I did the last 3 or 4 years, was I pretty much got my backyard cleaned up. Now, I know some people don't have the capacity to do that because they are the single breadwinner and all this other stuff. But I'll tell you, there's a way to juggle things that some people are figuring out how to do. Not everybody's going to do it, and I get it. But yeah, we're heading into a major social Darwinism. And this is going to be so extreme and so extraordinary that the Biden era will be like, people will want to have the Biden era come back. They will want to have Biden come back. It's done with. You had your reprieve. You had your taste of freedom. Oh, gosh. And I was raised in that type of situation. My mother was like a Trump or the Heritage Foundation. She was like that. Absolutely. So I got a taste of what it's like to deal with a regime that's so harsh and heavy-handed, but then also have the reprieve occasionally with my dad. He was more easygoing. He was more of a pushover. He was more like, cool, Dad. Thanks, Dad. Mom was like, oh, God, watch out. Here she comes. Well, yeah, Biden was like my dad, and the Trump era, the Heritage Foundation, is going to be like my mother. And it's not going to be pretty. It is. So how are you going to survive a very aggressive regime? You get the fuck out of the war, because your very existence is going to set somebody off into a tailspin. You be very aware of your surroundings. You be very aware of what it is that you're doing. If you're breaking the law or doing something, be very aware of what you're Googling on Facebook or Googling on Google. Be very aware of everything, because everyone has been radicalized against you. Even myself. I'm not any special. That's why I stay home and stay safe. Being Asian, a woman, and even the Jilly Juice world. You think I want to put myself out there, be like a white moth against a black background? Oh, hell no. Not in this world. People around me, you know, in my neighborhood, they know me, so they leave me alone. But I wouldn't be out there wearing a Jilly Juice shirt and holding a Jilly Juice sign. No, hell no. I wouldn't be out there protesting whatever. I wouldn't be out there marching against somebody that supposedly, allegedly, you know, took away my freedom. No one's forcing anyone to do anything in the first world. When you have kids, yes, you have some kind of responsibility to the government and to those children. But if you don't have any kids, you don't have any animals, and you're just on your own, then what the fuck are you protesting? Oh, God, the air, food, and water. So the system even gave people who didn't really have anything to protest, something to protest against, something to resist against. And that's what my mother told me a long time ago, is that she wanted to give me something to resist against, because eventually that would be the war, and that would be the war of potential survival if you could survive the resistance and then knowing when to leave. See, people don't know when to leave. So they'll keep resisting air, food, water, and politics, religion, science, and fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. They'll keep resisting viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. They'll keep resisting black and white and Asian. They'll keep resisting every single religion, every single allegory out there. And then you bring in someone like the Heritage Foundation, which are based out of Washington, D.C., and have been in place since the 1980s, actually since 1973. And then implemented in 1980s when the Reagan era. And now they've perfected everything. They already have an army behind the scenes that you don't even know, already waiting for this time to happen. And they already have things putting into place. They already have all that was, let me tell you, the system is probably 20, 30 years ahead of most people's even idea that there's a system ahead of them. And so, yeah, we're heading to social Darwinism. And so what you say on Facebook and what you say out there and, you know, your politics, religion, science is all out there for everyone to see. Pro-vax, anti-vax, whatever. But you're a woman and you're all about having a bunch of babies. Well, yeah, one day you're not going to be able to have a choice whether or not you want to carry that baby to term. You will be forced to carry it to term, and you may not even survive it. You may not even survive your domestic violence partner. You may not even survive your family, your friends, your society. And so we're going to see the error of all of our ways of our extreme politics. And it's going to be freaking ugly. And so when I was thinking about Men in Black, Galaxy Defender, I'm thinking gal, shit, Axie. And then who are the Men in Black? They're the ones that go and disappear all the aliens, right? That was the movie with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, that's his name. And they're all controlling all the aliens, the people who had issues, as well as these little microbes that are superimposed to look like aliens. Gal is a woman. Axie is a tool to grind and split. Galaxy is basically a woman, her uterus. The Men in Black, basically like the FBI, CIA, all those Tavistock, are defending the women from being split apart and ground into nothing. But you're going to have to see a lot of women sacrifice. So you understand why the system is doing what it's doing. What it means women sacrifice. Because when they're forced to have kids, you saw when they had the choice. They chose to have 5 kids. And they don't survive. They don't survive their family. Their kids actually survive. I mean, their kids actually, 2, 1, whatever years old, survive the mother. The mother died from that family. And the kids are not even, 18. And so we're going to watch women get sacrificed from being forced to get pregnant with no options for choices. We're going to see guys being forced at 15, 16 because they had a kid to take care of a baby and have to pay the child support or raise a family. And if you didn't want to do that, knowing how hard it is out there, then you have these poor girls, victims of domestic violence, and they don't survive pregnancy. And that's happening all over. Okay? Either young girls are sexualized and somebody hurts them and destroys them, or they get pregnant and someone doesn't understand how to go through the court of law because that's too much. I mean, can you see any 18-year-old file a petition to give up his parental rights to his 18-year-old girlfriend, ex-lover? No. Boys nowadays, boys even back then in my era, didn't know how to file petitions to give up rights to the kids. So they just walked away, and then the system slapped all these types of child support suits on them. And so then they're stuck for many, many years giving money to something they never really agreed to. And the girl, she didn't know any better. And so it's just a freaking mess. It's a mess. But you must see the examples of women who are split into nothing because people don't know how to hold back, and they follow deadly traditions with no regard to the outcome. And so the next 4 years, you will see women forced to have children with no access to choice, and they will be split into nothing. The next 4 years will be deadly to everyone because people will be in resistance and women will be forced to see the error of their ways. And I'm going to sit back and watch because I've done my job. I've made my contribution to humanity. And so with this climate change that is not going to stop, and then reversing everything back to the 1950s, before all the civil rights stuff, right? The women and the men and the families is going to be an extremely deadly society, which is why you need to learn how to survive a very brutal conservative regime, because even the sexual revolution, everything is cycling back to the 1950s nuclear family. And no more LGBT marriages, no more, claiming that you're all this diversity stuff. I mean, it's going back to the family and everything. We funnel through the family. And then also when you go to school, I don't know what they're going to do with homeschool. If you go to school and the kid acts out, you can only imagine then the system alerted to what it is that child is acting out from. And if that kid is doing some really bad things in school, they will investigate the family. And sometimes they'll even take the kids from the family if they see that these kids are in an environment that is not safe for them. And that could mean a lot of different things. And it's a scary thing. But we've been given so much latitude to look at the error of our ways. But again, when you give people, so much freedom, they don't know how to regulate themselves. They just do whatever. They don't think drugs and alcohol and crazy sex and adultery is wrong. They think, oh yeah, I'll just do whatever it is I want with no kind of accountability. Well, those days are over. Those days are done. Okay, they've done the experiment. So the 1950s showed you that, a woman at home, doesn't have to be necessarily pregnant, but a woman at home cleaning and making sure the backyard is tidy and make sure the steps are tidy, make sure her house is tidy, and having the kids, in an orderly fashion and going to school and doing what they're supposed to do. That was the way it was. And then in the 1960s, things went kind of haywire. And even I got a taste of what our town is going towards because we were given a letter to clean up something behind our fence. We didn't realize that there was a bunch of noxious weeds that needed to be trimmed down. And so we got a letter and we're like, well, we mowed our front lawn, we mowed our backyard, but there was a bunch of noxious weeds that were growing behind the fence line. And there was garbage and all this other stuff, but that was an alleyway that we don't really go into and see. So we were not really aware. And we were aware, but we didn't realize that was something that needed to be cleaned up or was going to be regulated. Well, we got a letter from the city like, if you don't do this, this, and this, it'll be a misdemeanor. It'll be this. I'm like, holy shit. This is out of the blue. This is this is so random. We've been here since, for a few years, and we got a letter from the city that sounded like someone was laying down the rule of law. And I'm like, oh my God. And we both of us freaked out. We called the city and we took care of it. But that's what we're heading into. We're heading into extreme rule of law. Not the law of the jungle, but the rule of law that will govern the conduct of nations, and that includes your community. It'll be like being part of an HOA. And so, yeah, even my town is cleaning up itself. And they're getting everybody in the city on board with throwing the rule of law at everybody. And so right there is a sign of things to come. And so we have a thing called BAN, which is like beautifying your city. And then there's little, little groups that go around and find out all the blights in the areas and then get the owners and whoever to clean up the messes. Oh yeah. The city and even the feds are mobilizing a lot of things. People are not even aware of what's coming down the pipeline. And so, yeah, that was really kind of crazy, that letter that we got. And so when we called it, we took pictures of what it is that we took care of, and we sent it up to the city, and they gave us an email. And everything is fine. But we're like, oh my God, getting, a 4th degree misdemeanor for noxious plants behind a fence that that's been there for the last how many years. And all of a sudden it's not right. I'm like, okay, but see, it's selective enforcement, and now they're going to enforce everything. And so with all this climate change that is not going to stop, and reverse everything back to the 1950s for the women and the men and the family, this is going to be an extremely deadly society, which is why you need to learn how to survive a very brutal conservative regime. And you can't resist because you'll be taken down. The rule of law, not the law of jungle, will govern the conduct of nations. And so every single perceived protection around discrimination, what have you, will be peeled back and revert back to what it was before. And no more special treatment. And you better be very careful cruising and walking in society intolerant to race, gender, and air, food, and water. And yeah, people are going to be racial profiled. That's going to happen. That. And so if you're going to walk around your city and you're not dressed in a specific way and you're acting in a specific way, you got to know how you're dressing, how you're acting. You don't want to trigger anyone, whether it's law enforcement or some vigilante right out there. You got to know what world you're living in. And you're going to have to let the system clean up everything. And you can't be resistant. Now it's time to stay home, stay safe, get a computer, follow the laws, follow the rules, pay your bills, pay your taxes, clean up your backyard, clean up your house, lessen your consumption, release the demons, understand what they're trying to do, stay home and stay safe, and don't be going to all these crazy gatherings, because the larger the groups if you hang out in large groups, yeah, you don't know what the hell's going to happen. You don't. I mean, you already saw a taste of it the last couple years, but you can only imagine if the system is now bringing a very conservative regime, they expect resistance. Actually, they want resistance. And if you choose to give that to them and you choose to be out there, exposed to everyone who's been radicalized against each other, the system can do whatever the hell they want. What do they call it? FF? FALSE? FLAG? And they can blame it on somebody? That's what I'm saying. You don't know what the fuck is going to happen in the future. And you don't want to put yourself in that position, especially as the system keeps heating up. Not so much, climate change, yes, but also economically, also politically. Because they're bringing in the family again and the rule of law, because they're setting us up for the next world. And yeah, the West is going to be a major example. Of course, America is going to be a huge example. When I was Googling the religions, what religions are going to be left, or are we going to have religion? But remember, everything happens in stages, and nothing happens all at once. But America is going to be scaled down. And there'll be less Christians in America. Why? Because a lot of Americans are going to be scaled down. Through climate change, through resistance, through politics, religion, science, through just complete obliviousness. through the medical, holistic, energy healing world. You're already seeing it now. People dying suddenly all over the world. And even more so. Oh, yeah, more so. I guess it's all pretty much happening. I mean, shit, yesterday I felt my arm was sore. I said my arm was sore. But, I mean, I took a nap. I had heart palpitations. I took a nap. So I knew something else was going on. I had a little bit of the back pain where I had knots. It wasn't that bad, though. So I took a nap, and then I woke up, ate a bunch. I was so hungry, actually, at night. Usually I was hungry in the morning, like around 10 or 11. But yesterday, I woke up from the nap, and I was really hungry at around 5 or 6 o'clock, like I was, like, usually in the morning. And so I made spaghetti, and I ate that. So I knew something else was going on that was repairing and doing whatever and releasing. I released a lot of demons this morning, like a lot. Like a lot. Yesterday, not as much, but this morning, yes, a lot. So I knew something else I was releasing, I was repairing and releasing yesterday. And so that's every single time I get a heart palpitation, it's the body, my immune system is activating. And that's what you're seeing in the diet suddenly groups. People are getting these heart palpitations and the back pain, the arm pain, and neck pain. And that's because the body is trying to push, their immune system hasn't been activated, and the body's trying to push all that bacteria and stuff through the lymph nodes, through the blood vessels, and people are in resistance. And so they feel the pressure. And yeah, people get heart attacks and strokes. Or they don't eat food because they think the food's going to feed the immune system to activate it, to try to push it through. And so then they don't eat food, and then they are now subject to the elements. They are now in major entropy. Aggressive thermodynamics. And that's crazy. It's crazy. I feel okay this morning. And so be careful cruising and walking in a society intolerant to race, gender, air, food, and water, which means you don't want to be out there if you don't have to. You get in, you get out, and you get on with your life, and you hunker down because the next 4 years are going to be brutal. And I really would not join in any marches or demonstrations because you'll make yourself a target. And death sometimes is a side effect of marches. This will be the time to set up your workstations at home and learn everything you can the next 4 years on the computer and release your demons if possible. Law enforcement will be put back, but they will be Trump loyalists, and that's how the system is going to bring in the new world. If you are any specific race or gender that has been discriminated against in the headlines, I would stay out of the public foray. And if you are any race besides Caucasian and male, you need to be very careful. If you're a woman, you need to be very careful. This is not going to be an easy transition. If you are addicted to porn and everything else, you are highly sexualized and the system is watching everything you're doing. And women are not allowed to get abortions, so be very careful who it is you get with. Okay? They will not be allowed to pursue birth control in different places. And predatory men will be held accountable. So here's the thing. So if girls get pregnant in the red states, they can't find abortions. If they're in a blue state, well, okay. Maybe they want you to get the abortions to maybe give yourself an opportunity. I don't know. Or maybe that will, keep taking away your potential life force. And so women here, let's say in the red states, and they're not allowed to get abortions, and they're forced to bring in children that could potentially work for the state that have a little bit of lifelines left. And so maybe there's a whole thing behind, what areas are, would be subjected to no access to reproductive family planning stuff. So I just be very careful who you get with. Be very careful who you get with. I hate these typos. I swear to God. That's okay. And so, and predatory men will be held accountable, and trading porn back and forth, exploiting women will be frowned upon. Some of you guys on Facebook, you say some really aggressive stuff about women and their body parts. And it shows you have lack of respect for women. It's pretty sad to watch some of these men talk about women and their body parts and talk about women and it's pretty sad. And yeah. And so, you know, when you're doing that, when you talk about women the way you do on Facebook, you can only imagine what the fuck you do behind closed doors. Some of you are showing your cards. And I would say, maybe it's time to be respectful of women on Facebook. Maybe it's time not to talk about their body parts on Facebook. But you know how men can be. They think, oh, you know, women are not to be respected. Women are just commodities, something just to, yeah. Well, those days will be over. And so women need to be extremely conservative in their presentation out there. The system doesn't really care what you do on Facebook because you're going to show your cards. We want to know who you are. And so as long as it's not completely in your face, but prostitution and anything else, obviously everything is going to the wayside. Daddy's coming home and he's laying down the law. The irony is Trump is whatever he is, all right? Everybody has speculation on his part in all the crap in the Me Too movement, but whatever. And many men will identify with him and then act like what he acted like and think it's okay to exploit women. And how many men think, oh, it's okay to exploit women, huh? Because he's going to be the representation of the Heritage Foundation. No, he's not the actual representation. He's just the Pied Piper drawing out the predators in our society. The ones that don't care about women and all that stuff. And so eventually the system is going to find out the type of people out there. And when you think, oh, because Trump's in office, you can do whatever you want on the internet and peruse porn and do this and that. You sell it, you purvey it, you do what, the system is going to come fucking down on you. So be very careful, men out there. Maybe start cleaning up your background. Release some of those crazy ass succubus demons so you're not feeling like you have to go and do the things that you do and say on fucking Facebook, which is actually really you have a lot of freedom to say stuff on Facebook. And when you have that kind of freedom to say and do stuff on Facebook, holy shit, people see everything that what it is that you stand for and what you don't stand for. It's crazy. And so the system will not allow you to exploit women or children. So be very careful how you act and present yourself to people on Facebook as well as in your society. Trump and Biden are great representations for the system to draw out the type of people they want to draw out. Then the hammer will come down. You better make sure your backyard is clean and you better know what society you live in. If not, you'll be like a white moth against a black tree and you'll be picked off. We are entering into extreme social Darwinism, and I don't think most people understand what that entails, but they will. Okay, so I spent the last 4 years at home. And believe me, I ain't going out there. When this new regime comes in, I ain't going out there. Unless I have to go do shopping or whatever. I'm staying straight at home. Because someone's going to be popping off, pissed off. And so, I spent the last 4 years at home pretty much on my own. I will spend the next 4 years at home because I know how triggered people are. And just your very presence could trigger people into reacting. Everyone is in resistance to somebody and something. Just look at your Facebook. And so we're entering into the next American Revolution. And it's a war that you'll choose to join in and inject yourself into, or you walk away and defend yourself, defend your property, and don't walk into really diverse company because you don't know what people think of you, of your face, your politics, your religion, your science. And I'll tell you, even the white men need to be very careful out there if someone is pissed off at the Heritage Foundation and you represent the Heritage Foundation. Even though you're like, I'm apolitical, it doesn't matter. Everyone makes assumptions about something. People have learned how to make assumptions by just looking at somebody. And so, some of you are scoffing at me because I had such extreme premonitions of the solar eclipse. Believe me, what's going to happen the next 4 years will pale in comparison to what the solar eclipse doled out as far as all the tornadoes and floods and hurricanes. People don't even know what they don't even know, and they will soon find out. And so racial and political tensions will be high, and the sexual orientation industry, regardless if it's gay or straight, those tensions will be extremely high. Okay, so that's why I post some of these videos that people talking about, Project 2025 and Agenda 47. People are scared. Oh yeah, you should be. Social Darwinism. You should be very scared. You had so much freedom. And people took it for granted. And what they did was they thrust their belief system in people's faces and forced people to deal with them. They imposed. They didn't behave themselves in public. No, they forced themselves into people's situations. Forced their children to see situations that they were not prepared to see. And then people caused, wars and were hurting people and all this other stuff. And you can't, when you know how people react to you, like I don't put myself out there in situations when people have a resistance against me. Why would I force myself into a situation where I know people have resistance against me? And so you can be what you want to be on Facebook. Like my mother told me, write what you want to write, but don't say what you say. Don't say anything to me, but write what you write. Write whatever you want, but don't ever confront me and talk nasty. And so I wrote whatever I wrote, and she was okay with that. And so you write what you write on Facebook, so as long as with the community standards, but you conduct yourself like a person who is back in the 1950s. You wear presentable clothing. You don't call attention to yourself. You don't trigger some predator to come and take you. You don't walk in dark alleys after midnight, okay? You present yourself as if you respect yourself and you respect society. Because I'll tell you, profiling is going to happen. All of that shit's coming back. And you don't want to be caught out there. It's time to stay home and stay safe. Okay, what clued me in on this? Because I had an issue with my drivers this morning on my computer. Because I always do the updates, and I look for the optional updates, and I go and do those updates, and I go through that process. And then I make sure everything is clean and all that other crap, right? And then one of the drivers just had an error in the upload. I'm like, fuck. And so I did all these troubleshooting things and even Googled, in the community forums what I should do. And it wasn't an easy thing, and you can't find the stuff in the catalogs. And I'm just like, okay. So I go into actual Microsoft support, and they have an option to chat with an agent, a technical agent. Usually I would call like Geek Squad or something, but I don't have any package with them anymore. And I don't want to spend $40 on something that maybe if I can find a way to get it for free through the actual support, because I pay for Microsoft Word through MS Microsoft. So I pay like $70 a year to have Word so I can write stuff that I want to, if I want to save documents. And so, yeah, they had a chat and they remote thing. And so they had remote sessions set up that quick. Someone can come in, and it was so easy for them to come in and commandeer everything in the background and do whatever they do. So Big Brother is watching you. There's flags on everything. And I'm like, okay, we're here. We're in the new world. We're in the new world now. The men in black are behind the scenes. Here we go. Here we fucking go. And I'm fine with that because I have nothing to hide. I don't peruse porn. I don't go and go on the dark web. I don't sell illicit drugs. I'm 100% clean and sober. And I just expand my brain, and I stay home and I stay safe. And I even stay mostly alone, so that way I can self-reflect and think and expand my brain. And I keep the brain moving. Sometimes those videos that I post with music is keeping the brain moving. Because, I watch Dexter and watch Netflix and stuff, but sometimes you need more brain stimulation. Okay? And if my body is sore because of going through a transition, an immunological transition, then while that's going on, you expand your brain. And that's what I'm doing as I go through this physiological, immunological transition. It's the brain that needs to be worked. And so then I do the Facebook Reels. I even talk on Facebook to practice my public speaking, practice my writing, making connections, helping my fellow humans prepare for the future. Whoop. All right, there was a little bit of a glitch there. Yeah, so what is it? A mom of 3 dies after her bad stomach ache turned into to be terminal cancer. Yeah, people are not realizing that even the hay fever that the system says, oh, what you think could be hay fever, what you think could be a cold could actually be cancer. Well, absolutely. In this environment, yes. People don't understand how aggressive the environment is that is waking up some people's bacterial colony forming units that were laying dormant and now have been activated and are on the move. And if you don't have an adequate release process, then the things are not only laying dormant, but they're waking up, but they're also metastasizing. And so then when you don't have a release process, then yeah, mom of 3 dies after her bad stomach ache turned out to be terminal cancer. And I could imagine if she had a bad stomach ache and her body was trying to release, like trying to go diarrhea, or she tried to throw up, and she took medicine to stop the symptoms, she's trapping those things inside. So all those immune suppression drugs like Imodium AD and NyQuil and all these other types of vasoconstricting drugs will then force those microbes to stay inside, and they replicate that fast and they take a person out that quickly. And so that's how the system has utilized the medical holistic industry in conjunction with climate change. And people choose to vasodilate or vasoconstrict their immune system. They choose immune suppression, and that's why they don't survive what could have been a release and a save. For them, no, they metastasize an entity that they couldn't release. And so people are like, oh gosh, you don't know who I'm glad I what is it? Something about people worrying about who their real friends are. I see that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see that when people say this, like, who are my real friends? Blah, blah. I'm like, people who have to have real friends, they're in the slavery system. Do you know the slavery system is when people have to eat together, hang out together, party together, sleep together, what is it? It's nice not to worry about who your friends are in life. It's a freedom. People around you have freedom. They don't have to live up to your expectations. You can move around without answering to anyone except for your government or maybe your husband or wife. All right? But what is it? A slave population must do everything together. They must eat together. They must sleep together. They must party together. They must work together. They must travel together, develop families together. And they also celebrate holidays together, and they die together. Freedom is when you don't have to do hardly any of those things with people and still be relatively self-regulating and relatively self-sufficient, and you're not lonely. Okay? Freedom is when you're not having to be so connected to a best friend who gives you no space. And so the family and friends was the slavery system. And that was also ensuring that people worked for the system to develop an infrastructure that they needed. That's why the 1950s were what they were. And we're going back to the 1950s because we're building an infrastructure of the new world. And they've done all the experiments and everything. And so the next 4 years is going to be resistance and going back to the 1950s. And you're going to see there's so much happening. Freedom is when your social calendar is empty and you have so much time to work on you, not on somebody else. Not sucking the life out of somebody else. Freedom is when you can occasionally do things with like-minded people. Sometimes it might be once a year or once every 10 years. Sometimes volunteering or working can give you that social interaction without having to be social. And so, which is why you're seeing, why you see having a family will force you into a slavery submission type of situation. And a lot of girls are going to be stuck in that. And so the next 4 years will be a representation of slavery that people will not survive. They will not survive their domestic partner, or domestic violence partner. They will not survive childbirth. They will not survive their family. They will not survive their friends. Oh yeah, the party days are over. Men and boys, the next 4 years will be enslaved by their choices. Men had the opportunity the last 50 years to figure it out. And some were never exposed to the choices, and some will, and some things you can't take back. Once that sperm goes in there and she's fertile, it's done. So, I mean, yeah. It's crazy. Project 2025 and all that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't need to go over all of this that I have written down. You can read it. But the next 4 years, they're cleaning up the system, scaling a lot of people down and back through so many different means, through people's choices, and holding people accountable. And then 2028 will be the end where the system is going to finally say, okay, no more religion. The Antichrist is here. It's done. So you'll have the pro-Christ the next 4 years, and you'll have the Antichrist right after that. Prepare yourself. So I'll play the game, because that's what you got to do, play the game. And this next winter is going to be really, really cold. And so one day even marriage will not exist, because marriage was a way to hold people accountable for their procreation intentions and develop a stability, a working society, and study the petri dishes of families. And so in the future, marriage won't even be on the table. All right, so we scaled. So we had the 1950s marriages, and we had the sexual revolution. So then LGBT got to get married and domestic partner and all that stuff. And then we go back to the 1950s, and then that will be done with. And so then we don't even want people really to get together, because what are they going to do? Hurt each other and have babies that won't survive or turn into cyborgs? Okay, if you choose to have babies, and you'll have to carry to term, even though they might destroy your insides. Maybe that baby will or will not have a great life, but hey, they'll have plenty of machines attached to them to make them do whatever. Oh, I mean, it's going to be crazy. And so eventually, then even people won't want to be married and won't want to even have a sexual partner because of all that entails. And so they learn how to self-regulate and self-satisfy on their own, and they're taking care of their job and their house and whatever. And so that's essentially how it's going to happen. But you're going to see the resistance of both the left and the right come to fruition in the next 4 years. And so my advice to all of you, everyone will be in resistance against you. Everyone will. And so assume everyone will be in resistance against you. You stay out of harm's way. You stay out of harm's way. You do what you do on Facebook, and that's fine. Block and delete trolls who inject themselves into your world, acting like a VACCINE. And then you be careful out there in public, and you act very respectful and smile at people and be polite, and you know the world that you live in. And you fly under the radar out there in public. And if you have to deal with the public out there because you're in a job, well, know your surroundings. Know who's coming in and out. Watch your back. The next 4 years are going to be brutal. And I've watched enough videos on people reacting to Project 2025. Yep, the writing's on the wall. I wouldn't be traveling next year. I wouldn't be doing anything that puts you so exposed to diverse people out there, because you don't know who you're going to trigger. And if you are in a third world country and they're closing the borders and deporting people and all this and having internment camps, Americans are not going to be looked kindly upon. Know the climate of even your reputation as an American living in a third world country, as an expat. All right, bye.